So they should probably be separate. All right, I'll go. Try to go fast. They should be separate. All right, we got a full house. Start whenever. Okay. Call to order the meeting of the Verona Common Council for Monday, August 24th, 2020 at 7:01 p.m. We'll begin with the roll.
Alder Cronin.
Present.
Alderperson Journey.
Here.
Alderperson Kemp.
Here.
Alderperson Cole.
Here.
Alderperson Posey.
Here.
Alderperson Rinke.
Here.
Alderperson Ryan.
Here.
Alderperson Touche.
Right here on Zoom.
Fantastic. Next, we'll move on to item 3, public comments. Mr. Sayer, are there any public comments?
No.
All right. Next, we'll move on to item 4, which is approve the minutes from the August 12th, 2020 Common Council meeting. Alder Journey.
So I have a change to make on the minutes. Under the Kate and Toots section, when we were discussing the outdoor seating, I had made the suggestion of using the alleyway between Toot and Cakes and the attorney's office. However, Mr. Sayer had reported that that has been discussed with the owner, and there were some concerns about using that space. And I suggest that because it appeared in the Verona Press last week, so thinking the minutes should probably reflect that.
Clerk.
That is mentioned on page 4 of the minutes in the second paragraph.
My apologies.
Well, it's good to check. Alder Rinke.
I was just going to make a motion for approval of the minutes.
Motion by Alder Rinke. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Cronin, I believe. Last chance for corrections. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the minutes from the August 12th, 2020 Common Council meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that is approved. Next, we'll move on to item 5, mayor's business. First up, we're going to do these all separately. But first up, under 5A, we have appointment of citizen member to the Plan Commission. If you weren't aware, Steve Heinzen moved out of Verona, so he had to resign his spot on the Plan Commission. I thought he was a great member, had a lot of good, thoughtful contributions. So I'm sorry to see him go, but sometimes that's just life. So in his stead, for the remainder of his term, I'm appointing Steve Hingle, who is a dedicated Verona resident and who I expect to offer interesting and thoughtful feedback on projects before the Plan Commission. And with that, I would ask for a motion to approve the appointment.
So moved to approve the appointment of Steve Hingle.
Motion by Alder Rinke. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alder Kemp. All those in favor of approving Steve Hingle's appointment to the Plan Commission, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. And Steve is appointed. Next up, under 5B, we have appointment of the citizen member to the City-Town Joint Planning Committee. This was also Steve Heinzen's spot. Typically, it's been a member of Plan Commission gets appointed to this committee as well, which is the Joint City-Town Review Board, because it makes sense to have someone who's doing planning on the city side. So since this was replacing Steve Heinzen, I have Steve Hingle again for this spot. So a motion to approve Mr. Hingle to this spot. I would ask for that.
So moved.
Motion by Alder Ryan. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alder Journey. All those in favor of appointing Steve Hingle to the City-Town Joint Planning Committee, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. And that motion passes. Next up, we have appointments of members to the Sustainability Task Force. This is a new task force. I have 5 appointments, which should be enough for the committee, or the task force rather, to get started. I expect to appoint at least 2 more people. So, if you know of anyone, talk to anyone. I just kind of wanted to leave it open for a couple weeks to give people a chance to catch up with it. My appointments are as follows. There are 2 citizen appointments, Kirsten Reeser and Joe Zilmer. These are both Verona residents who showed interest in the task force before it existed. And they both had interesting and thoughtful things to say on the environment and sustainability. So I think a big part of success for this committee or task force will be enthusiasm. Like we want people who want to do it. And then we also have 3 Alder appointments: Alder Charlie Ryan, Alder Heather Reiki, and Alder Katie Cole. I hope everyone wants to be on the committee, but if an Alder did not want to be the task force and I appointed them, let me know and we can rotate it around. With that, I would accept a motion, or I would ask for a motion to appoint the members listed in the packet to the task force.
So moved.
Motion by Alder Journey. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alder Ryan, I believe. All those in favor of appointing the people listed in the Sustainability Task Force as listed in the packet, say aye.
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 Opposed, no? And that motion passes. Next, we'll move on to 5D, which is overview of the election process. And I'll turn this over to Clerk Clark. There's a lot of questions and concern about how voting is going to work, and I want to make sure everyone knows, starting with the council, how's it going to go in Verona. Clerk Clark.
Sure, thank you. So the request itself asked for some information regarding the August 11th election, as well as registration, absentee ballots, timelines, and that sort of thing. So I sort of arranged this report in that way. So I'm going to try to share a screen with you. Please be patient with me. Okay. Does everyone see that now?
Yep.
Okay, great. So these are the numbers from the August 11th election. So in terms of absentee ballots, we mailed 3,574 absentee ballots. Of those, 11 of them were sent again. So we need to subtract 11, so 3,563, due to either not receiving them through the Postal Service or because they spoiled their ballot in some way or another. The total returned ballots were 2,431. Excuse me. And the total return to be counted was 2,354, which is approximately 85% of total voters voted absentee. And that's kind of what we're expecting for November as well. In comparison, I looked at the partisan primary from 2018 and 2016. 11% voted absentee in 2018 and 12% in 2016. So it's quite a big difference. 168 people took advantage of early in-person voting, and that is included in that total of 3,574. Of the total returned of 2,431 and the return to be counted of 2,354, there are 77 ballots that were not able to be counted. So 13 of them were returned as undeliverable, with just an undeliverable sticker with no particular reason. 34 of them, the voters had moved, most of them to Madison, the vast majority. And we had 25 returned after the deadline, and only 5 of them were rejected at the polls due to a missing witness signature, which is a very, very low percentage. And I'll show you this graphic in a bit too, but the reason that we had such a very low percentage is because Kayla put together a graphic that goes in with the ballots, the absentee ballots, that shows very specifically exactly what you need to do to complete your absentee ballot certificate in full. So I give her all the credit for that. So the total number of voters on election day were 2,784, with only 430 of them in person on election day. So it was very slow. The breakdown by wards is here as well if you're interested in that. You'll notice that in wards 6 through 9, the total voter number was 1,630. Wards 1 and 5 and 2 through 4 are both vote at the library. That total was 1,154. So there's quite a discrepancy between the number of people who vote at City Hall and the number that vote at the library. Once we have the census numbers back and redistricting takes place, we'll be looking at probably a third polling place. Our polling places are just getting a little too small for the number of voters that we have. But we want to wait. We'll do some discussion. We'll have some discussions with a couple of different places. I'm not going to name them this evening because we haven't really discussed with any of them yet. But after the redistricting, we'll do that when we know better where our numbers really are and where we need to place our voters. Any questions on those numbers?
Questions from the council? Seeing none?
Okay. Adam, if you could help me. Okay, thank you. So I'll move on then to voter registration. So as of noon today, the city of Verona has 9,202 registered voters, and we have 3,287 absentee ballot requests for the November election so far as of noon. If we get to the 85% mark, which we're expecting, we'll have a little over 7,800 absentee ballots that we'll be processing for the November election between September 17th and November 3rd. So we'll be very busy, and we'll be calling in some people to help us with that. So voters can register using the myvote.wi.gov website if they have a driver's license with their current address. If they don't, they can still use that website, print off the form, send it in to us with their proof of residence, which is, if it's not your driver's license, it's a bank statement, a utility bill, a cable bill, anything like that that has your name and your address on it and shows that you've been there for at least 28 days. So as of now, there is a 28-day residency requirement. It had been 10 days, but that's changed to 28 days again. So that means that you have to have lived in your residence by October 6th to be able to vote at your current address in the November election. If you move after October 6th, you'll have to vote where you would have voted at your previous address. So if you move from Madison to Verona, you would have to vote at your previous Madison polling place if you move here after October 6th. October 14th is the deadline to register online or by mail. So to use the MyVote process, you would have to do that by October 14th. If you mail in your registration, it has to be postmarked by October 14th. After that, you have to register at the clerk's office. So because our offices are closed right now, you can also, during early voting, and I'll give you those dates coming up here, you can also drop off your registration forms and proof of residence with our election inspectors who will be in the lobby for early voting the 2 weeks before the election. Friday, October 30th is the deadline to register in the clerk's office. So that's a drop dead deadline for registering to vote. No registration on the weekends, no voting on the Monday, or registration on the Monday before the election. Or you can register at your polling place on election day. Anyone can do that as well. We encourage people to register ahead of voting day so that you don't have to wait in line. It just takes a little longer to do that, but you can do that.
Alder Touche? You're not coming through.
No.
All right, never mind. Clerk.
I pulled the plug on him.
Hear me right now?
Yeah.
While you're on speakerphone, you might hear the TV in the background. I have a college kid, brand new, just graduated high school. She's in Minnesota. I just want to confirm her residence is still here. Is that correct? She's in the dorms?
Yes, her permanent residence is here.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And I'll talk about that a little bit later too, that as one of our challenges, because schools are in session and then they're closing and then they're moving back to their homes and then their ballot is at school and they're here, and so that causes a little issue sometimes. But you can also check the My Vote site if people want to know if they're registered. They're not sure because they do drop off if they haven't voted in 4 years since the last general election. So they might want to check just to make sure that they're registered. Because if they try to get on the My Vote site to request an absentee ballot and they're not registered, they're of course not going to let them do that. Any questions about registration? Okay. I'll move on to absentee voting then by mail. The best way, again, is to use the myvote.wi.gov site. If you've not requested an absentee ballot in the past, you'll be asked to upload a photo ID, which is an issue for some people who don't necessarily use the internet a lot, or don't have a printer, or don't know how to use their cell phone to take a photo and upload it. Either way, no matter how you request an absentee ballot, whether it's online or by email or through using an absentee ballot request form, you do have to have a picture of your photo ID to go along with it if you've not requested an absentee ballot in the past. If you have, then we should have that on file, though it doesn't always happen that way. So just so people understand that the request for an absentee ballot has to be made in writing or online through My Vote, and you have to have that photo ID.
And just to clarify, when you say photo ID, you mean something like a driver's license or some other official ID?
A driver's license, the same. It would be no different than if you voted on election day. The same thing that you would show.
Excellent. No, I know there were some cases, at least in other communities, where people took pictures of themselves, like a literal photo ID of themselves, and that doesn't count, and then you won't
Count. No, it has to
be able to get a ballot.
Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, it has to be a Wisconsin ID or a passport or something like that. Yeah, not a prom picture like that. And we have gotten some of those. So, absentee ballots requested before September 17th will be mailed on September 17th. And we have to mail them out at least 45 days before the election to get to our overseas and military voters. If they're requested on or after September 17th, they'll be processed within 24 hours, not including the weekends, so 20 business days. We're asking voters to request an absentee ballot 2 weeks before Election Day, at least 1 week if you're planning to use the drop box. And we do have drop boxes in our parking lot between the flagpoles in the parking lot. There's also one just inside the main door of City Hall, just kind of mounted in the wall. So either of those can be used. We're asking people to allow 7 days, not including Sunday, for return of their ballots to us in time. Ballots have to be back to us by 8 o'clock on Election Day, and we'll be checking the drop boxes at 8 o'clock on Election Day. That'll be the last time they'll be checked. So the last day for regular overseas voters to request an absentee ballot is Thursday, October 29th. Remember, too, that a postmark does not count for your absentee ballot, so a postmark of Election Day, November 3rd, will not count. It has to be in our hands on Election Day by 8 o'clock. Along with our absentee ballots, we have standard voter instruction forms that come from the Wisconsin Elections Commission, the WEC. And we also have a graphic of the absentee. Let me see if I can try and share that with you. So we send this out this goes in all of our absentee ballots. So it tells you how long you have to send it back, sign and date. There's the purple arrow where you should sign it and date it. Here's the blue arrow where your witness should sign it, the red arrow where your witness should put their address in. All the instructions are over here on the left. Have it back here by election day. And if you have any questions, there's a phone number. So, and if you don't have all of this, your vote won't count. So since we've been sending this out with our ballots, we've had very few come back that haven't had completed certificates. That was a really big problem, and it takes us a whole lot of time trying to track people down, because we do want people to vote. If they're eligible to vote, we want them to be able to vote. It just takes some time to track them down. So again, thank you to Kayla for that idea. We actually kind of stole that from Madison, but she turned it into our own thing. So thank you, Adam.
Ellen, can you scroll down so we can see the bottom? And I think Kate has her hand up.
Oh, yes, I can. Yeah. Alder Cronin, whatever.
Ellen, can you send this to us so that if we want to share this on our social media, we can do that without having to recreate the wheel?
Sure. Kayla also put together a video that she has posted on social media, on Facebook, a couple other places. I believe it's on the website. That shows people how to fill out their absentee ballot. It's very cute. So I'll send that to you as well. Here. And we got a lot of hits on that, and a lot of people requesting their absentee ballots after that was posted on Facebook. So that worked out really well.
Alder Touche.
Another question. What about early voting? Is that still going to be an option this fall?
It is, and that's coming up.
If I'm jumping on the schedule for you, sorry.
Nope, you're fine. It's the next thing on the list, actually, so you're good timing. So in-person early voting times and dates, we are now, again, allowed only to have in-person voting for the 2 weeks before the election, 14 days before the election. So that'll start on Tuesday, October 20th. So Tuesday, October 20th through Friday, October 23rd, we'll have it here in the lobby from 8 to 4:30 p.m. On Saturday, the 24th, it'll be here at City Hall from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then the following week, Monday the 26th through Friday, the 30th of October, we'll be open extended hours from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. We're also having voting at the Senior Center on Friday, October 23rd from 9 to 3, and Saturday, October 24th from 9 to 3. So on October 24th, there will be voting available, early voting available at both the Senior Center and City Hall from 9 to 3. Anyone who cares to participate. We are not anymore allowed to, or for at least the rest of this year, allowed to enter the residential care facilities for voting. We used to have special voting deputies go in, but we're not allowed to do that now. So those people will all get their ballots by mail. We also have some information that has come from the WEC, along with some other resources that we'll be sending along to the care facilities management and activities directors, so that they can help their people maybe facilitate their voting a little better. So we've also been discussing with Stephanie at the Senior Center ways, some possibilities for helping particularly the elderly with their absentee ballot participation, and sometimes they have difficulty finding witnesses for their ballots. The tricky part about it is that the witness to your ballot is officially supposed to see that ballot before it's voted, so that they know that there are no votes on it before the voter votes, and then allow the voter to vote, and then watch them sign the outside of the absentee ballot certificate, witness it, and include their address. So a lot of people, especially elderly, don't have someone else in the household with them. They're alone. They don't want to go out of their apartments or their homes. So something that we talked about is possibly sending along with these people's absentee ballots, if they're considered indefinitely confined, send along a postcard type thing that they can use to hang on their neighbor's door or put at their neighbor's mailbox saying, would you mind being a witness for me? Along with instructions as to how they could do that. So what we've been advising people in the past to do is check with your neighbor, whoever, meet them maybe in the hallway. They take a look at your ballot. You can walk away if you want. They can be out there in the hallway with your ballot. They see that it's not been voted. You can come back. I mean, it's many steps, and it's inconvenient, but at least you're getting the witness, right? So you come back, you vote the ballot, you come back, and out in the hallway again, they could stand at their doorway, you at yours. You can sign it. They see that it was you signing it. Leave it in the hallway. Then the witness can pick it up, sign their name and address, and put it back down. And then you can get your ballot back. That's the best way that we've come up with. If any of you can think of something else, please let us know, and we'll, certainly consider it. I know that the case managers at the senior center said that they may be able to do some witnessing for people. Stephanie also offered that people could take the bus to the senior center, make an appointment, and the staff there then could witness, but one person at a time for them. So those are some options we have for that. And we're also encouraging people through social media and some things that we're posting on our website for people to just reach out to your neighbors if you know that they're alone. Maybe you can just say, hey, here I am, knock on their door if you need somebody for a witness. I'm happy to help you. I know Dane County, at least in April, had a group of people that was going around Dane County and offering to witness people's signatures. So I'm not sure if that's something that'll be happening again in November, but I'm guessing that it will. I haven't heard about it yet, but I'm sure we will. Another change that's been made to absentee voting is that we had been able to send absentee ballots via email to anyone. That's no longer the case. We can only email to overseas and active military voters and their families. The rest would have to be by mail or in-person absentee voting. We have great staff right here at City Hall, but because of the number of absentees that we'll have this time, I think that I'm certain that we'll be bringing in some additional help, some additional election inspectors. One thought that I had, and if I wouldn't mind your feedback on this, is to have one or two people here just to answer the phones, to answer questions. We're already getting a huge influx of phone calls regarding registration and absentee ballots, and what about the postal service, and do you have a drop box, and that sort of thing. So if we had someone here who could answer those questions, it would save us a lot of time as staff to do the rest of the work that we need to do on a daily basis. So that's just a thought. So I think that's what I have for absentee ballots. Any questions on that portion?
Any questions from the council?
I promise I'm almost done.
Alder Touche.
How are you doing finding poll workers?
I have received, I was telling Adam this earlier, I have received in the last week 3 to 5 emails from citizens asking if we need help, offering to work as poll workers. We've not advertised ourselves. I believe Dane County may be doing that. And I know it's it's been on the TV news and that sort of thing as well. So I found in April when we were coming right down to the wire, and as my regular election inspectors were dropping like flies, it seemed like every phone call or email I got from one of my regular election inspectors, I got another from a citizen of the city wanting to offer their help. So, and it's very unusual. We're very, very fortunate to have that. We have some really very civic-minded community members here, so we're very fortunate, very fortunate. I feel very lucky. I tell my election inspectors that I'm the luckiest clerk in the state of Wisconsin to have them on my team, and now we have this too. So can't complain on that at all.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Alder Ryan.
Thanks. I just wanted to clarify, Ellen, you're asking for volunteers to physically be there at the council to answer phone calls. Is that what you're looking for?
Well, not necessarily volunteers for answering the phones, but on election day, I'm sure we'll be needing some additional people.
Okay, sorry. I thought you wanted, you were getting an influx of calls about the election process. That's not what you're after?
Yes, but I think we would probably go ahead and bring in one of our more seasoned election inspectors to answer those questions.
Gotcha.
Probably one of our chief inspectors.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Good. Any other questions? Not seeing any.
So part of the request also was to go over what we did at the last two elections since the pandemic began, and what we'll be doing moving forward for November 3rd in terms of protecting our voters and our election inspectors and allowing people their best options for voting. So I'll just go over the PPE, the personal protective equipment that we'll be using on election day and also for in-person early voting. We have hand and surface sanitizers available to the voters and the election inspectors, and we'll have election workers that will be their job to wipe down voting booths, the various stations, the registration and check-in stations, use of hand sanitizer upon entering and exiting the polling place. So we're encouraging all voters to use the hand sanitizer when they come in and to use it as they exit the polling place. And most of them do. There's no question. They just go right ahead. All election inspectors will be required to wear masks, and we'll have paper masks available for any voters who would like them and don't have their own. I don't think I saw anyone come in without their own in August. I mean, here in Dane County, of course, because of the mask mandate, everyone just assumes that they need to have it on. We, however, are not allowed to require voters to wear a mask, but our election inspectors do have to wear one. But we do encourage them to please wear one, and it's best for everyone. We also have plastic face shields available for voters if they'd like them, but primarily for our election inspectors. And those are more for maybe our chief inspectors who are all over the room, the greeters who are going to be seeing everyone who comes through the door, that sort of thing, the people who may be a little bit closer. And we did have a couple of our inspectors choose to wear those in August. Also, gloves will be available to voters and the election inspectors if they'd like them, though again, we're not sure of the efficacy of gloves, and they have to be very careful about how they take them off and put them on. Social distancing will be enforced, and we will have election inspectors assigned to that task as well. And it will occur within the voting place as well as any area inside or out where we see a line forming. We'll make sure that we're having the 6 feet apart. No more than 10 voters will be allowed inside the polling place at any one time. In fact, we're trying to get that down to 8. and the way we have them, the station set up and the social distancing set up. We wait until each station is empty, so someone enters the polling place, goes to their station, the check-in station. Once they're done, they go and pick up their ballot. When they leave, then the next person is allowed into the room to take that spot. And then they'll go into the voting booth. So we won't have any more than 4 people in the voting booth and 4 people within the check-in and ballot distribution station at any one time at our polling places. Voters will enter through a single exit and entrance and exit through a single exit. We'll also have the doors open if we can, weather permitting, for a little air circulation. Plexiglass sneeze guards are in place at the registration and check-in stations and the ballot distribution station, so that protects both the voter and the election inspector. I don't know if you've been in person to the polling places since this all started, but we also have magnifiers at the check-in station, so when voters come in, they can take their photo ID, they place it in a little slot, it magnifies. It's actually made for cell phones, so you can, if you have trouble seeing the little picture on your cell phone, you can put it in this magnifier, and it makes it the size of like an 8.5 by 11 almost. So they put their ID in this magnifier. The election inspector on the other side of the sneeze shield can see the ID, review it, and then the voter can take their ID back again. And no one has to touch that ID, so our election inspectors don't have to touch their ID. Styluses are available to sign the Badger Book, and also for our election inspectors to navigate through the Badger Book, so no one has to actually touch the screen. The styluses are sanitized by our election inspectors and after each use. Pens are distributed to each voter at the ballot distribution table, so when you get your ballot, you'll also get a pen to mark your ballot. When you're done with your pen, you deposit it as you're leaving in a box, and then those pens are sanitized and returned back to the ballot distribution table, so everyone gets a clean pen to mark their ballot. Or they can take it with them. We have enough that everyone probably could. We aren't distributing I voted stickers, and we're not serving food to our election inspectors, just to be on the safe side. Our absentee ballot processors are required to work in tandem, so they'll be together. So what we've done is scheduled married couples and good friends that we know are fine with each other. They see each other, every day probably anyway. So they seem to be just fine with that. They're home together, so they can work together. They'll be together for the duration of their time on election day, so they'll take breaks together. No one will be substituting, so it'll just be the 2 of them for their entire shift. Areas will be set up outside the polling place, picnic tables for inspectors to take a break and eat lunch, and then they can get some fresh air and take off their masks too, because that gets kind of long after a while. We're considering combining the 2 polling places for November. We have requested from Dean Garrell use of the gymnasium at the old high school, and he has consented to take a meeting with us, with the building principals and the building and grounds personnel in the next week or 2 to consider that, to look that over. That decision will kind of depend on how many absentee ballots we send out, and we think we're going to be getting back. The more absentees that we send out, the more likely we'll condense into just one central polling place. That decision has to be made and approved by the Common Council by October 4th, so that would go to the September 28th council meeting. And if we do make that change, the information should be advertised to the public through social media, the newspaper, our website, the VHAT cable TV channel, local TV channels, posters, maybe flyers and grocery bags at Miller's and Festive Foods. We did that about a year or 2 ago, I think in 2018 at Miller's. Register, get signed up, and that seemed to work pretty well. to direct people to the school. We'll also have additional election workers, should we make that decision, that can direct people both inside the facility and direct traffic outside in the parking lot. Because we have a steady increase in the number of registered voters in the city, our current polling places are almost becoming too small to accommodate the number of voters that we have. So particularly now that we're having to put social distancing in place. So even though we're not limited to a maximum of 10 individuals, because we're a polling place, we are, as I said before, going to try and limit it to 8 people. So we are talking about adding a 3rd polling place, but we'll do that again, as I said before, after the redistricting takes place. Any questions about PPE or how we're protecting our voters or our election workers?
Any questions from the council?
Okay.
Alder Journey.
I just want to thank you for all your effort, and the attention to detail is, gives me confidence that everybody will be able to vote, and they'll be able to vote safely, and that there are several different voting options. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. So just briefly, I promise you, I'm almost done. A few of the challenges that we have, because that was requested as well. Verona mailing addresses that are actually located in Madison or the town of Verona or some in Middleton. People think that they should be voting here in Verona. They show up here on election day, and we have to send them to another polling place. Fortunately, particularly with the Badger books, and we also use Access Dane and WisVote on our laptops on election day, we're able to direct them to the proper polling place. We've actually had some cards made out with the different polling places in Madison in particular, so they can take it along with them. So the address is there and they can plug it into their phone. Changes in Midstream, we had one already for this election. We had about 4,800 instructions, absentee ballot instructions printed out, ready to go into the ballot envelopes, and the WEC changed the instructions and we have to use new ones. So we're starting over with that. And we all know what happened in April, that we had some things changing quite often. So I kind of mentioned this before, students returning to school asking us to send their ballots to their school address, and then the school's closing and they return back home so they don't get the ballot and we have to send them another one. That really is just a matter of them realizing that that's happened and that they don't have their ballot and reminding us in time so that we can get it out, and this just takes a little bit longer. And the last thing is there are several special interest groups that send mass mailings of absentee ballot requests or registration forms out to all voters. Our name, our return address, name and return address is on those forms, but they don't always send out complete instructions or make it available to them so that they can send back their proof of residence or the other items that are required. So then when we get those requests in, because again, we want everyone to vote who is eligible to vote if they possibly can, we have to take the time to see if we have a phone number or an email address or something to contact those people and say, hey, we need some more information from you. So it just takes more time. And though I understand that those groups are trying to help, sometimes it makes it a little more difficult for us because they don't have all the information. But the Elections Commission, as well as the WMCA, the Municipal Clerks Association, have been discussing that with some of these groups and asked them to maybe make some improvements for us for those. We want to remind voters that their votes are not recorded in WisVote, so they're not going to see their vote online instantaneously the minute they vote. In fact, clerks have up to 30 days to enter the votes. It doesn't take us that long because, again, we're on the Badger books and we just upload it. So they should be able to see by the next day, or if not, the following day. But we're asking people not to be upset if they check the My Vote site on election night. They voted at 8 o'clock in the morning and they want to know why their vote doesn't show up. It may take a couple of days. So we also have a WEC CARES and Election Security Sub-Grant in the amount of almost $10,000, $9,991, that we're using to help pay for some of the extra expenses, most of which is postage. Each absentee ballot costs $1.15 for us to send out. And when you send out 7,000 of them, that adds up pretty quickly. So we're using a lot of postage. That's all I have. Any questions? Sorry it's so long.
Alder Cronin.
I just want to clarify, if someone requested and received an absentee ballot, but then decided that they wanted to vote in person, they need to bring their absentee ballot with them to the polls. Is that correct?
They do not.
They don't.
When they get to the polls and they check in, it will be indicated that they requested an absentee ballot. If their ballot has been returned, that will also be indicated. If it says that it's just been, that they've received one, but it's not been returned, if they come in and say, no, I didn't return my absentee ballot, we'll check with the absentee ballot processing people to make sure that that ballot is not there physically. And if it's not, they can just go ahead and vote like any other voter. We're also asking people that if they haven't, from the time they request their ballot, if they haven't received it within 10 days, please call us. And, you know, we've had several people wait until, you know, the Thursday before the election and say, oh, I never got my absentee ballot. Well, it's going to be difficult for us to get that to you now and have you get it back. Though with the drop boxes, that's helpful. They can drop it off right here versus trusting the postal service.
Alder Kemp.
Yes, thank you again, Clerk Clark, for all your diligence and the work of your staff. I do have one question, and it's really just to make a point. Late last week, we heard from the federal government, at least from the executive branch of the federal government, that they were going to be sending out law enforcement to monitor polls. Is that anything that you've heard of at this point?
Not officially, no.
Okay. The reason why I bring that point up is because I think it's important that the citizens know that their right to vote is precious, and they shouldn't be intimidated by things like that. So you've heard it from your own clerk that this isn't something that she's heard. So it's important that you take the opportunity to vote. Do it whenever you can. It's your right to do so. And don't necessarily believe all the things that you hear or see on TV or on Facebook or Twitter or what have you. It's important that you vote. Thank you.
We may have National Guard units activated, but they will not be there for law enforcement purposes. They're there to help us out.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you very much for all that, Clerk Clark. I think it was really helpful, and I definitely feel better about the whole process.
Thank you.
And with that, we will move on to item 6, announcements. Does anyone from the council have any announcements? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 7, administrator's report. Mr. Sayer.
Thank you. Not too much tonight. There is a neighborhood meeting on August 26th, though on Wednesday. That's for the Sugar Creek redevelopment neighborhood meeting. That's for the Steve Brown Alexander proposal. So they'll be hosting a neighborhood meeting the night of August 26th. We have a personnel meeting on August 27th, and then a plan commission meeting on Tuesday, September 8th. Other upcoming meetings is we have our board review meeting, as we all heard tonight from Dean Peters, is on Tuesday, September 29th at 5:30 p.m. So once again, please mark that date on your calendars. We'll be hosting that by Zoom. And then once again, the census is still underway. They are doing door-to-door follow-up for people who have not responded to the census. They're working between the hours of 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. There has been some reports in the Madison area of people posing as census workers. Keep in mind that these people will never the real census workers will never ask for your social security number. So just be cautious of that if people are out there. Currently, Wisconsin ranks second in the United States with a response rate of 70.3%. Minnesota is currently leading at 73.1%. And Dane County as a whole is at 76.2%. So once again, if you know of anyone who has not responded, please, please, please respond. As Ellen said, this is the basis for our redistricting in the city. And also this is how districts are assigned for federal government and state government as well too. So if people don't respond, you don't get counted, and it potentially hurts our funding and potentially hurts how we set up our districts for elected officials. So please respond. And that's all I've had. I'd be happy to answer any questions from the council.
Any questions on the administrator's report? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 8, engineer's report. Ms. Fisher.
Thank you. For the well 6 pumping station construction, we're still waiting for that gas service to be installed and gas piping completed by MG&E, and so until that happens, the well startup is delayed. So hopefully that'll happen towards the end of this month. For the PD construction project from Woods Road to County Highway M, that project is complete. For the rapid rectangular flashing beacon project, that project is also complete. For the Woods at Cathedral Point Phase 1, sanitary sewer construction is nearly complete with some testing yet to be done. Water main construction is underway. There was a road closure last week for the water main connection and storm sewer work. Work on the twin 48-inch storm pipes is in progress, but slightly delayed while a 14 by 14 foot box storm sewer connection structure is finalized. For the Sugar Creek Commons public improvements, this is a project that's currently, actually it was just bid, bids were opened on Friday, and it's currently under review by the city engineering staff. Work will consist of reconstruction of a portion of West Verona Avenue from approximately 200 feet east of Todd Street and Legion Street from West Verona Ave to Top Avenue to install a new sanitary sewer main on West Verona Avenue and Legion Street and replace an old water main on Legion Street and Top Avenue. New median improvements will also be constructed to provide left turn lanes from westbound West Verona Avenue to the proposed Sugar Creek Commons development. Other improvements include new curb and gutter, asphalt pavement, and new sidewalk along the east side of Legion Street. For the two major design projects, the East Side Interceptor design, pre-final construction plans and specifications are under review by city staff. The construction permit has been issued by the Wisconsin DNR. And finally, for the Lincoln Street stormwater facility design, final design is progressing on the pond design and modeling, pond embankment design and permitting and corresponding hydraulic and water quality modeling. 60% plans will be submitted to the city this week with permits to follow shortly thereafter. So with that, I can take any questions.
Any questions on the engineer's report? Seeing no hands, we'll move on to item 9, committee reports. First up, we have 9A, Finance Committee. Alder Kemp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion for the payment of the bills in the amount of $724,488.52.
Motion by Alder Kemp. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alder Cronin. Alder Kemp.
Thank you. For the sake of discussion, on page 1 in the explanation packet, we see that there's $31,254.77 paid to Middleton Ford for the Parks Department's new truck. On page 2, $30,718 for the cities and villages municipal insurance. That's our first quarter workers' comp payment. Page 3, $67,295 to Mark Meyer mitigation credits for the East Side Interceptor construction project that we're working on. And then on page 4, $414,716.34 to Payne and Dolan Incorporated for County Highway PD construction.
Thank you for that explanation. Questions, comments on the motion to pay the bills? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of paying the bills in the amount specified signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. And that motion passes. Anything further from finance?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to item 10, adjournment. A motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
Motion by Alder Kemp. Is there a second? Seconded by Alder Touche. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. And we are adjourned at 7:56 p.m. Thank you.